Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be speaking about AI and the law. This will be a short presentation of a few minutes in which I will discuss a possible solution to some of the issues being raised on platforms like LinkedIn. One that maintains the very value of AI that we seek, its ability to generate content. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, at the moment, there are a few legal cases going on. One in particular I make reference to is Rain versus OpenAI, which is allegations that ChatGPT contributed to a teenager's suicide. Now, there are not so many in the UK at the moment, but don't let that fool you. These will be coming fast, both at a personal level and also at a corporate level. For instance, issues arising from false information or incorrect information caused maybe by hallucinations from ChatGPT and so forth. It also will not overwrite existing legal standards in terms of negligence, product liability, or duty of care against a software provider, for instance. Some of the issues that sit behind some of these cases particularly affect vulnerable customers, and some of the terms being used in the media at the moment are around AI psychosis and how AI chatbots are becoming popular alternatives to therapy in themselves, potentially worsening mental health crises. One particular case, for instance, is the issue of Alan Brooks, a father from Toronto, who spent some time with AI, which led him down the rabbit hole of believing that he'd created a new mathematical framework with impossible powers. That caused this man to suffer from severe delusion. It's that kind of thing that we're looking at. So let's now consider how the courts will react to this. I think certainly they will no longer treat AI as just code or something neutral, and they will start looking at it like a product. And products come with legal duties. It requires evidence that safety trade-offs were considered, documented, and owned. And legal in-house teams need to respond to that. They need to stop treating generative AI as an experimental feature. They need to manage it like a regulated product with design obligations, incident playbooks, and clear accountability. Red teaming will no longer be optional. The psychological risk attached, potentially, to AI, no longer just mere speculation. But for me, this is all fine, but the critical differences about AI is its generative capability. That's why we put it in place. And when the product itself is generating content of itself, then who becomes liable? Because now, with this new type of technology, we can see a tension between our traditional approaches of control with design time responsibility and putting in the guardrails around that, and the tension against the value that is created from runtime emergence. And what I am worried about is if we over-constrain it, if we start utilizing traditional legal controls, we turn off those probabilistic outputs. And that, as I say, is what I'm worried about. We need to find a different way so we make sure we get the very value that we seek from generative AI. If we turn to the courts now and look at it in a bit more detail, we can see that anything that's the courts are needing to judge on, they will not accept just the mere defense that the model did it. We can see, based on early signals from product liability, platform cases, and foreseeable harm doctrine, that liability will indeed flow upstream to model developers and deployers. In emergence, that generative capacity will be treated like a design risk, not an act of God. And courts will ask, if harm was foreseeable, what controls did you choose not to implement? What did you? Why did you allow unconstrained generation here? In other words, generativity won't eliminate liability. It will redistribute it. And the future will become not about whether it's probability versus determinism, but about context-aware risk gating. So we need a solution that both enables the emergent value of Gen AI and manages the risk from unbounded sensitive contexts, where the winning companies will not turn off probabilistic outputs or over-sanitize everything into uselessness, but will instrument variance, document trade-offs, prove intent and control. And that will be the difference between the model said it versus we engineered a system with known risk envelopes. And now, critically, we will shift liability from a concern about outputs to concern about orchestration. In other words, the raw model is not the product. The orchestrated system becomes the product, and a system that will include context detection, access tiering, risk thresholds, intervention logic, human escalation rules. And this is the nub of it. This is where people, a specialized team of AI orchestrators, come into being, and legally necessary, not just technically elegant, because they will orchestrate the context and they will manage the liability, which will answer the real question courts are asking. Not why did the model say this, but why was the model allowed to operate this way for this user at this moment. So in summary then, the legal fulcrum of this is, with AI, there's no single safe or unsafe AI. There are only safe or unsafe deployments by context, with different levels of access, different variance envelopes, different interaction depths, different memory and persistence rules, based on user vulnerability signals, topic sensitivity, interaction trajectory, and regulatory domain, whether it's health, finance, gambling, vulnerable clients, minors, and so forth. And this will directly assess foreseeable harm without collapsing the system into bland determinism. So let's now look at a few principles around this. First of all, what we will see is a reframing of monitoring as signal extraction, not surveillance. What I mean by that, courts will expect monitoring. You should not fight it. You should try actually to narrow it, not in terms of, we no longer need human reading every single chat, no blanket retention, no omniscient oversight. Instead, what the courts will look for is real-time machine-level safety inference, event-based logging, threshold-triggered intervention, audibility without voyeurism. And that aligns with existing doctrines in financial market surveillance, AML in particular, medical device monitoring. So it's just really an extension of something familiar. Another principle is make documented trade-offs your shield. Courts will not require zero harm, perfect prediction, full explainability. They will require evidence that risks were known, alternatives were considered, controls intentionally chosen, and ownership was clear. AI orchestrators again. So your system must produce versioned safety thresholds, recorded design decisions, rationale for where variance was allowed, proof of proportional intervention. So those will then become your safety artifacts. And of course, manage context through AI orchestrators. This will preserve probabilistic value by constraining where and how it operates, not by eliminating it. It will anchor liability in orchestration of emergence. It will prove intent, proportionality, and ownership. So generative AI does not need to be predictable and predictably controlled. It just needs to be governed at the point of use, governed by AI orchestrators. And my final point extends this to be aware of other domains, because we're developing a system that can be utilized in other areas of monitoring. So this architecture will recurse into live chat, gambling, social platforms, mental health adjacent services. Once real-time risk detection like this and the use of AI orchestrators becomes a reasonable standard for AI, choosing not to use it in other high-risk live systems begins to look negligent. But as long as you also, of course, insist on domain-specific authority, purpose limitation, and clear boundaries between safety and enforcement. So hopefully you've enjoyed that little presentation, and hopefully it's been clear for you. I'm most concerned, as I say, about ensuring that context is king when we deal with AI and generative AI, that we do not lose that critical value that arises from AI recursion, the discussions between AI orchestrators and chat to surface new value. We do not lose the generative capacity in the round either. And the only way really to do that is by this system and this engagement with developing a specialized team to manage that context. I hope you've enjoyed that. As I say, please reach out if you want any more information on this, and look out for further vlogs coming up from myself and my collaborators. Thank you.